The Baltimore Ravens were this close to making the playoffs last season. In the offseason, this near playoff squad added some outstanding talents that helped make the playoffs a reality in 2018. The main question is who's going to lead them there, the grizzled vet Joe Flacco or the hotshot rookie phenom Lamar Jackson? We'll answer that question and more in our 2018 Baltimore Ravens season preview.
Let's take a look at some of the key storylines heading into the season as we go into our 4-minute offense. All eyes will be on the Ravens quarterback room throughout training camp and into the preseason. Veteran Joe Flacco, who brought the Ravens a Super Bowl title back in 2012, will have to keep first-round rookie quarterback Lamar Jackson from taking over the reins. There are a lot of reasons why this will have a lot of focus during camp. One, Flacco is coming off an okay year and has been sort of average since the Super Bowl season. Two, Lamar Jackson has a ton of fanfare being a Heisman Trophy winner and is essentially a human highlight film that gives them a different dynamic at the position. Now, for the record, I actually like Joe Flacco. He has what I value most in quarterbacks, and that's mental toughness. But Jackson is a more polished version of what Michael Vick was coming out of Virginia Tech. He's equally as dangerous with his arm as he is with his legs. He's also coming out of an offense that's very similar to what the Patriots run currently. Flacco's contract is what makes this a very difficult and probably a non-football decision, but at some point, that'll be less and less as Jackson starts to make plays at practice and in preseason games. The forgotten man in all of this is Robert Griffin III, who they signed prior to the draft. I think overall with Flacco, RG3, and Jackson, this is a very strong QB group, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the summer and into the season. Baltimore wanted to get better in the passing game and went out in free agency and totally revamped their receiving core, bringing in Michael Crabtree from the Oakland Raiders, Willie Snead from the New Orleans Saints, and John Brown from the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this looks to be as solid of a group as the one they had back in 2012. The hope is that these guys can gel together along with Flacco or whoever is the starter and provide some much-needed stability on the perimeter. This has been a glaring need for Baltimore for quite some time. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, longtime veterans like Terrell Suggs, who's entering his 16th season in the NFL, safety Eric Weddle entering his 12th, and cornerback Brandon Carr, who's entering season number 11, performed at a very high level last season, and we all know that Father Time is undefeated. So the question then becomes, how much do these guys have left in the tank, and are they showing signs of slowing down? What we do know for sure is that the Ravens have done a great job in preparing for when or if that day comes with the way they've drafted over the last 3 to 4 years. But if last year is of any indication, these three still have a lot of productive football left to give. Ravens head coach John Harbaugh is entering his 11th year as Baltimore's head man in charge. It doesn't seem that long ago that many were questioning whether or not a special teams coordinator was actually ready to be a head coach in the NFL. Now, fast forward to just over a decade later, and all he's done is win a Super Bowl and compile a 10-5 playoff record in the process. He also only has one losing season in his career and 2 500 finishes. I said all that to say this: his seat should be ice cold, as he is a really good coach that gets the most out of his roster. I also know that the NFL is a what have you done for me lately type of a league, but if you look at his tenure from a 10,000 foot level, you'll realize how good of a coach Harbaugh really is. One of the reasons for optimism for the Baltimore Ravens has to do with the drafting of Lamar Jackson. When you have a player of the caliber of Jackson who can do the things he can do with the football, you can't help but be optimistic about your team's chances on any given Sunday. Another reason why is because he's landing in one of the more stable organizations in football that'll maximize his immense potential and talent. You can also be optimistic about the Ravens' backfield. They found a hidden gem last year in Alex Collins, who should top 1,000 yards this season. They also have good depth with Buck Allen, who's your ideal single back. They get Kenneth Dixon back from injury, and keep an eye on 2 undrafted rookie free agents in DeLance Turner out of Alcorn State, who's very similar to Alex Collins, and Gus Edwards out of Rutgers, whose game is also similar to that of Buck Allen. This is a really good group. The Ravens' offensive line could be the best in the division if we're being honest, and that's saying something considering what Pittsburgh and Cleveland bring to the table as well. Marshall, Yonda, and Ronnie Stanley are premier players. Both Matt Skura and James Hurst are valuable and versatile players with multiple starts, and they got a steal in the draft with Orlando Brown Jr. out of Oklahoma. There's also good depth here as well with Nico Siragusa and Alex Lewis. We talked about the Ravens revamping their receiving core, but they also did the same thing at the tight end position, adding 2 of the nation's best tight ends in the draft with the selections of Hayden Hurst and Mark Andrews. Hurst looks to be the quintessential H-back, while Andrews, in my opinion, has Jason Witten-like skills. Both will make life a lot easier for any Ravens quarterback who lines up under center. And who are we kidding? As long as the Ravens continue to play great defense and special teams like they do, how can you not be optimistic about their season? This is essentially how they are able to stay in so many games and win a lot of them also. This is a deep group at every level defensively, and the special teams battery of kicker Justin Tucker, punter Sam Koch, and long snapper Morgan Cox is one of the best in the NFL. A cause for concern would be if, with all the new pieces on offense, especially in the passing game, they are slow to gel together and find that cohesiveness. This definitely has the potential to happen because of the amount of new pieces that are going to be potentially starting for the Ravens. But it's great that the Ravens are getting an early start to camp because of their appearance in the Hall of Fame game. Those additional practices can help this team build that chemistry, as it is imperative that they hit the ground running come week 1. Here are some quick takes as the Ravens head into training camp. Look for both Alex Collins and Chris Wormley to have breakout seasons. I mentioned earlier that I feel as though Collins will have a 1,000-yard campaign as he goes into the season as the guy within this rushing attack. And Wormley got 2 starts last year and should get even more opportunities within the rotation this upcoming season. He has both the versatility and technical savvy to thrive in Baltimore. He's very good on both ends of defense. Some training camp surprises will be wide receiver Quincy Adebojo and linebacker Tim Williams. I just really like how Adebojo runs routes. It's almost clinic-like, and he's got dependable hands. Williams has that it factor that you can't coach, but he lacked the technique to harness it and be consistently productive. I believe you'll get to see the work that he's put in over the offseason during training camp, and definitely will turn some heads. Rookie impact players this year, I believe, will be tight end Mark Andrews and linebacker Kenny Young out of UCLA. Andrews had a ton of polish in his game at Oklahoma and will be an integral part to the Ravens offense. Young has a really good feel for the passing game. I think he'll have an opportunity to see the field in nickel situations and surprise. I believe he's a really good backer. And from a fantasy football perspective, you might as well go ahead on and take Lamar Jackson somewhere around the 5th or 6th round. I wouldn't trust him trying to wait any longer than that. He's going to see the field for Baltimore at quarterback at some point during the season. And when he does, he's going to be a platinum level fantasy football player. The road to the Super Bowl for the Baltimore Ravens goes as follows. The defense has to avoid any major injuries. I know injuries are a freak occurrence and you can't really plan for their avoidance, but if they can avoid them, this defense has the goods to push them over the top. The passing game obviously has to flourish. The Ravens invested a lot of draft capital and free agent bucks in that area this offseason, and they need for it to pay dividends right away in order for it to take some pressure off their running game and provide some balance on offense. And third, start Lamar Jackson. Now, whether or not that's week 1 or week 12, Jackson has to become the Ravens starting quarterback at some point in the season. Like I mentioned earlier, I actually like Joe Flacco and think he's a solid player, but I felt the same way about Alex Smith back in 2012 and understood why they made the move to Kaepernick from a productive Alex Smith. Lamar Jackson gives them that specialness that's needed to help a team make it through the playoffs. Lamar Jackson is that type of player, and Baltimore got themselves a steal at pick 32. I have the Ravens finishing 2nd in the AFC North. Very good defense and special teams unit, along with a good running game, will keep them in contention for the division title and ultimately a playoff berth, which I believe they'll get. Remember, this was a team that was one busted coverage away last season from making the playoffs in the final game. They'll right the wrongs and get there this upcoming year. Look for Baltimore to be in the playoffs and be a serious contender.
So that's it for our 2018 NFL season team preview. Be sure to follow me on all of our social media accounts. Also check out and subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast, and to find other NFL team previews for our 2018 NFL season kickoff, visit the YouTube channel at youtube.com/footballgameplan and click that subscribe button.